Good morning, everybody. Let's talk about mind mapping. It is World Mind Mapping Day today, and what a fun and exciting project that is that Tony Buzan put together and made so prevalent. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and we'll share some mind maps today, some of the rules of mind mapping, the laws that Tony Buzan offered us, particularly gathered in his book Mind Map Mastery. And I also got to shout out always Phil Chambers for 101 top tips for better mind maps, which was so influential on me, and also being able to learn mind mapping directly with Tony Buzan was also really, really great. In the same room, and of course, he left our worldly concerns for the great mind map in the sky recently, but I've got a link down in the replay below if you want to watch the in memoriam we did for that. Good to see Crone Woman Walking here. She said she started doing a mind map. It's a new area for me. I wanted to know tips for doing French mind maps, and I'm at work doing a heart. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about language learning, actually, because I'm going to share a mind map for language learning so you can get a sense of how that might work. But generally, we got to really thank Tony Buzan for putting all this together. It's just a massive project over many, many years that culminated in this book. There's one book after this, but Mind Map Mastery is the kingpin book, and really recommend it to everybody. In the links below this video, there's a blog post review that I did of the book, and some other resources, an interview with Tony Buzan, and an interview with Phil Chambers, who wrote 101 Top Tips for Better Mind Maps, which is a wonderful little book, and it's got so many things above and beyond that will really help refine your practice. But in any case, before I start with a mind map, I was thinking I'd like to mind map my big ideas of what mind mapping means for me. And then I thought, well, what's going to be my central image? Because I'm going to follow that law or that rule. And so I thought of one thing that Tony Buzan really loved, which is butterflies. This is him with a butterfly that I drew at the training that I attended, and he really liked that butterfly. And I was also just thinking about how inescapable of a force that he was, because soon after that I went and did the training, I found myself in Beijing, and all those books on the top row, the brown and the red and the other light brown and the green and the blue and the red again, those are all Tony Buzan books in a Beijing bookstore. So this is just a massive endeavor that has touched people all over the world, and just unbelievable. And that's part of what I mind map when I was just thinking of the big ideas. So Adolfo is here, says hello mechanic. Hello Adolfo, good to see you. So you say mind mapping has been my Achilles heel. It doesn't seem to stick. Let's give it another shot. All right, well, indeed, I think that's one of the key things, is to just keep exploring it, and I think you'll find some neat uses for it, especially with your quest to have many memory palaces, because that's one of the key uses. But in terms of the main ideas I've personally taken away from it, this is a mind map that I put together thinking about the international reach and the butterfly. Just for me, having met him and drawn that butterfly and him liking that butterfly so much, I just sort of put it there. And when you think about butterflies, they have this wonderful characteristic of being so colorful, for being the colors of the world in motion and connecting so many things. Like many insects and birds and stuff, they certainly carry the world's energy to itself, and they do it through color in motion, color in flight. And in some sense, that's what a mind map is. It's color in motion, color in flight, but it's the color of ideas, and very powerful. So I just thought that's my central image here. And we'll talk about the rule or the law of the central image in a minute, but I thought the butterfly really just represents sort of what a mind map is, which is thought in color, in motion. Christos is here. Very good to see you, Christos. Thanks for your comment, and maybe we'll catch that a little bit later, because intermittent hypoxia, although certainly something I'm interested in, is not related to mind mapping. And Sean is here. Good to see you, Sean. Thanks for saying hello. And Christos, no need to apologize if it's eccentric, but let's catch that at the end of the live stream. I'll do a review of these comments, and we can talk a little bit about that. And I certainly am talking a lot about it in the new book that I've written. All right, but so there's the central image of the butterfly, and then the eye, of course, is to reflect that mind mapping is visual. It's not only visual, but it is it's for the eye, and we'll talk about that. It's something that is very unique to this strategy compared to other sorts of information displays. This is made for the eye. So that's one of the big main ideas that I've understood. Also, and so obviously that eye there is what that represents. Then there's a little bit of a martial arts man, not a great artist, but that's what it is in my mind. And my eye visually understands that. So it reminds me of what the heck that I was thinking of there. And so the martial arts man is reminding me of one of the main ideas for me that's so important for mind mapping, is that it's physical. It's something you do with your body. And maybe less so in the software world, but it's still got a sort of physical component in that even in software, you are manipulating things physically to play out in a particular way on a screen, and you're somehow physically engaged with space. But I prefer drawing mind maps. I prefer it to be on big pieces of paper, and I like to have my whole body involved. And I find that that's very, very good for one of the key things that mind mapping does, for me anyway, which is to unlock ideas. And so when you have this space, you have your body involved, the ideas seem to unlock a lot better because of that physicality, the tangibility of it, and you're giving yourself a wide screen upon which to work. Then the next idea is practice. I think that the more I practice mind mapping, the more I get out of it. And it's actually quite extraordinary just how much that I get out of it by practicing it and continuing to practice. Then, of course, one of the big ideas, I think, is it's something that is for the world, because you can transcend language. You can transcend language by just starting to turn things into more imagistic and help you reach the world. And it's just something you can look at and share, and it's, wow, what is that? What's going on there? And then, of course, the lock there is that mind maps unlock. They unlock potential. They unlock avenues of exploration and discussion. And this is very powerful. So for me, those are the main ideas. There are many, many other ideas. If you have any ideas either now or on the replay, feel free to share them in the chat or in the discussion below. SDFG is asking about 101 top tips for better mind maps. Is it still available? I believe you can get it on Amazon. So head on over there. If not, you can reach out to Phil Chambers, and I'm sure he will let you know the answer to that question. But a very good one. Very good question indeed, because you should all have that book along with Mind Map Mastery. All right, so if you're joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and what you have to say about mind mapping, because today is World Mind Mapping Day, and we're celebrating by sharing some of the key ideas and the laws. Now, what exactly is the problem that mind mapping is trying to solve? Well, there's many problems it's trying to solve, and obviously you want to read Mind Map Mastery for the full story, but some of the big ideas really is that note-taking and info schematics are, and these are Tony Buzan's words, they're monochromatic, they're monotone, and they're monotonous. And that's very true. Like if you look at the normal page of notes, you know, there's nothing wrong with this, but it's just a page of notes, and it is exactly that, monochromatic, monotone, and monotonous. And to dig into this, even though these are very powerful notes and I use them to work on a project, They are exactly that: monochromatic, monotonous, monotonous, and monotone. And so I think that that's what we get with mind mapping is we just break all of that. We have color, we have space, we have flow, right? And we know from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi that we really want to be in flow state as much as we can, and that's part of the physicality of mind mapping is you get into a flow state. It's very difficult not to. Chanel is in the house. Good to see you again, Chanel. Thanks for being here. Christos says, Tony, what do you think about it? I don't know what it refers to in your sentence, but if it has to do with your previous question, like I said, we're going to pick that up later. All right, so when we think of mind mapping, the counter examples, what are not mind maps, and you can look up what these things look like on your own. The spider diagrams, pyramid diagrams, concept maps, fishbone diagrams, sunburst charts, etc. They're all very, very exactly that sort of monotonous, monochrome style, and they have their place, to be sure, but they're not really going to unlock the full potential and get you into that flow state that is so central to idea generation and what we're going to talk about later, some of the other uses, which as Chronoman Walking expressed, she wants to use it for French, and that's one thing, and I'll show you an example of how that can work. Adolfo says, is Chambers' book a companion to Buzan's book? I'd say it's a companion to Buzan's work, period. And so if we look inside, or we just look at the back, it says Phil Chambers, reigning world champion and international grandmaster of mind mapping, and a registered accelerated learning trainer. Phil Chambers founded Learning Technologies in 1999, a world-leading company in the provision of bespoke seminars on mental literacy and thinking skills. And if we look inside, I'm pretty sure we're going to very soon see the name Tony Buzan. He has been a Buzan licensed instructor since 95, trained by Tony Buzan, the originator of mind mapping, and so on. So I'd say it's a compliment as such, but this book predates Mind Map Mastery, but I'd still say it complements it tremendously. So thanks for that question, Adolfo. And I would just say, get them both. Why not? They're absolutely excellent resources. You'll see just how quickly this unlocks the key ideas of mind mapping once you've read this and done some mind mapping. I think that you might be like, I get it. Those are interesting ideas, but they might not have the full force that they would have without some of the core Buzan ideas. But nonetheless, Phil Chambers is a world mind mapping champion, and just get them both. That's what I'm gonna say is just like, if you care about this tradition and you care about knowing as much about it as you can, then it behooves you to have these things on your shelf and really dig deep into them. All right, thank you for an excellent question. Andres is here. Hello, Andres. Good to see you. And so, it's important to know what's not mind mapping, and all these things I've done in different ways and different times, or seen them, read them in books. And I'm reading right now about Ramus, the history of that, and he was really into all this stuff, and he thought that this was going to replace memory techniques, these kinds of diagrams. And so he was 1515, they'd think he was 1515, nobody's really sure, to 1572. And so this kind of movement to replace memory techniques with diagrams and so forth had a huge movement in that period. And so really strange, but true, and it didn't pan out. It didn't replace memory techniques at all. And mind maps are not meant to replace memory techniques either. If anything, they're a supplement to them, and they're an alternative in some ways, in some regards, to memory techniques, but they operate so closely to that method of low-key style, because if I think of the mind map I just showed you, be like, yeah, the eye was there, and so on, and the little martial arts man was there. I'm doing a spatial method of low-key memory palace of my own mind map to figure out what the heck I was showing there. So in that sense, a mind map and a memory palace are not that different, and they can work together in very, very powerful ways. These things, however, not so much. All right, so here's what to do instead with mind mapping. Have it be clear and compelling. Have your mind maps be balanced, colorful, keyword focused, evocative, and understandable at a glance. Now, I struggle with the understandable at a glance thing even to this day, but I try to follow it, and I find that I get way more out of the practice by doing that. And that's very similar to the memory palace drawings that I teach. You want to be able to see your memory palace at a glance, right? Make it very, very simple so that you're just like, those are my stations, bam. And it's like a constellation that's very, very visible. And it doesn't have to be balanced necessarily, because a memory palace journey doesn't need to be balanced really, but it does need to be focused on that journey and understandable at a glance, so that you never have to refer to it again. You just go, that's my memory palace journey. Away we go. So Adolfo says, what does it mean that Chambers is a world mind mapping champion? I don't know what all the conditions are for getting that award, but they're probably judged by some of these considerations. And Elaine Collier is also another one. I hope that I pronounced that last name correctly. Never heard it spoken, but you could check with her. I think she's won it even more, but I believe they usually conduct the competitions at the same time as the World Memory Championships. I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm sure that if you compare it to the World Memory Championships and know that it's conducted by the same people, they're holding it to a very high standard indeed. And that's just a great question. I never felt compelled to go and compete for mind mapping or memory at all, but I'm sure that Phil Chambers and other people have very good answers about what that all means. One of the things to consider too about that is that this kind of group activity of competing and so forth is that these people are essentially honoring the activity, and they're creating a grounds wherein like-minded people can come and celebrate. And so it's probably at the end of the day not so much about some sort of hierarchy of honors, but more about the Tony Buzan's vision of making mental literacy something that is known about around the world and practiced around the world. So that's ultimately what I would interpret as the ultimate meaning, is that being a world mind memory champion means that what you're doing is helping to spread mental literacy around the world and help other people pick up those skills and use them in their lives. And so when we think of mind maps being clear and compelling and balanced and colorful and so forth, when I first got into it, I really didn't follow any of that, because even though it was a very successful project and this went on to become a video course that was very successful, you can't really understand that at a glance at all. And also, not unlike just notes on a page, it's kind of like you have to start somewhere and then think in a linear manner, like, what the heck is all this saying? So it's almost just like colorful notes on a page. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. And again, this, as I say here, it's wrong. It doesn't follow any of the laws of mind mapping that we're going to talk about today, but it's also not a failure. It did help me get that project done. And so this is really just an elaborate, colorful outline squeezed onto a page, when really every single one of those colors might have been better served on an individual page. All right. So would you like to see some a mind map example and go through the laws and see if I hit all 10 of the laws? Let me know in the chat if that seems interesting to you, or if you feel like you've had enough information for today. As I get myself a drink from the great Master Spider-Man. Christos says, do you think people that live in higher altitudes... So are you going to continue to ask about these questions when I've said I'll talk about oxygen at the end? We will dive into that later, to be sure. So Adolfo says, yeah, all right. So one of the things that we could think about is mind mapping the answer to your question, Christos, and we'll get to those questions later. But for now, let's keep our focus on mind mapping. We got one hell yeah. We want to see some mind mapping. I guess if it's for Adolfo, we'll just carry on. But always testing the waters, seeing who's awake. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where in the world you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking. SDFG is in for some mind mapping. This mind map I'm going to show you, it doesn't hit all 10 of the laws, but we'll see how that it does. And so it's a sign of my progress with mind mapping since that I've been practicing it. And practicing is very, very important. And Reclaiming Life says here, from this fully facial haired guy, keep carrying on and ignore foolish questions. I don't know that they're foolish questions. Christos is a very valued member of our community and is normally totally on target. So maybe his account has been taken over, or he has dire needs to know about oxygen and higher altitudes. But that's just really not the purpose of what we're talking about right now, and we can certainly get to that later. But thanks for being here, Reclaiming Life. Always good to see you, and let's rock and roll. So this mind map, just to discuss what exactly it is here, is a mind map of, let's see, there we go. It is a mind map of a novel. So one of the uses that you can put mind maps to is story, plot. And so generally how this works here is when I do this, I follow the rules of plot, which are essentially that there's going to be some kind of ghost, which is why there's an image of a ghost there. And that ghost is going to be haunting the character. And then there's going to be a conflict between the driving ambition of the character and the unconscious need of the character. So you see that muscle arm there on the drawing. That's the driving ambition, and the unconscious need is now pointing to, what the character actually really, really needs. So that's usually the self-discovery or the moment of self-revelation, as it's called. And Adolfo says, okay, just bought Chambers and Buzan's mind mapping books. Got to dive in. Awesome. Thumbs up to that. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, hit the thumbs up for Adolfo's investment in mind map mastery and 101 top tips for better mind maps. World Mind Mapping Day is really great here from this particular broadcast, and thank you for that. Thank you for help yourself, which then leads to helping the world. I'm sure you're going to love it and get into it in a deep way, Adolfo, because you always are, like myself, in for a penny, in for a pound, and diving in. And anyway, I'm not going to do like a whole thing here on storytelling mechanics, but this is just following all of the rules of plot. It's a modified hero's journey to a certain extent with a little bit more finesse. For example, a dilemma is something that causes a period of delay, not instantly a decision in action, and so forth. All right. So basically, the first law is that the blank paper should be in landscape orientation. I need a little bell. Ting, check. I got it. So why would this be important? Well, there's a couple of reasons why it would be important. Like, for example, if you had it in portrait orientation, then you're not really able to have these radiating lines outward, these streams or tendrils or, branches, branches is one of the terms that Tony Buzan uses. You're going to get bordered in real quick, right? But if you have it in this, then you have more space to radiate outwards. And one of the ideas that Buzan had was that the mind map is kind of like a brain cell where there's a nucleus in the center and everything sort of radiates out of that. Now, is it exactly in the center? No, but who knows? I mean, we only have limited powers of imaging cells in the first place, but that's part of what the landscape orientation lets it do. Also, if you think about it, what orientation do you have, right? Do you have iPhone life, or do you see the world in landscape orientation, right? Well, we see the world in landscape orientation, more or less. I mean, we see something different. It's a combination of both, and it's kind of, if you really examine it, though, it is almost more like landscape. So this is part of that idea there. So anyway, ding, ding, ding. I got to get a ding, ding, ding. There we go. I got this one right. By the way, always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman, then be Batman. So, yay, we got this one correct. So I did all this from memory, by the way. And I didn't hit some of them because some of them I just don't use. But the next law is that the images, different images should appear throughout. So I've done this. Oh, here we go. It doesn't really make a very good ding. I need a bell. But yay for that. So the ghost there's a prison there for certain reasons and so forth. And obviously there's a central image, which is of this computer for this story that I was plotting out. And another one is that keywords should be capitalized. So, I got some of my keywords capitalized with need there and so forth, resolution, underworld, etc. David's in the house. Good to see you, David. Thanks for being here. And Reclaiming Life says, I'm new to mind mapping, but looking at your example there, when you use the same color for 2 different points, do the points have some stronger connection than others? Not necessarily, but you could do that. Basically, I don't have any of the ideas color coded. It's just that I change colors each time. And one of the reasons for changing the colors each time is I just think it gives a little bit of a moment of pause, of reflection before that you're actually diving in and doing something different. But it also just makes it more visual and shows that there is distinction between the points. And you'll see some of the other mind map examples. I'm just going to stick with this example for all 10 of the laws, but you'll see that some of them are a little bit different than this. But I generally just rotate the colors. All right, so keywords should be capitalized. We got that, ding, ding, ding. And now why should that be? Well, part of the reason is just logical. Like a keyword is a keyword and it jumps out at you much more visually if you are not doing that. So G of A on this one, I didn't capitalize the of, but I could just come up with a keyword for gathering of allies, which is that structure in narratology, and I could just put allies there as well, and that would actually make it better, because at first I was like, what am I thinking of? Game of what? No, it's gathering of allies. So if I just had a keyword, it's already better. So my own critique to myself: make a keyword there. Decision and action, probably DNA is just fine, and so on. Now the next thing is that branches should flow and taper. So in this particular mind map, I have them tapering, but it's arguable that they're not really flowing. But they're not flowing either. In any case, one of the reasons there is, you can imitate rivers and streams and tributaries and have that actual flow of ideas, and just try that in your practice, see how that works. Next law, use a ton of colors. I think we missed one. Why is it skipping slides? Balance the length of your branches. So I think I did pretty good on that one. They all pretty much balance. SR there is a little bit out of whack. But again, these are just general guidelines and useful ones to follow. Now we have emphasize the points with arrows and lines. And so that's to Reclaiming Life's question about colors being related and so forth. This is where I think you draw connections, is to use arrows and lines. So in this particular case, I'm relating how the dilemma is going to be connected to the ghost that's haunting the character. And that's typically what a narratologist wants to do. So I'm just making it visual for myself that dilemma needs to be really tied to how the ghost, and is really also tied to the driving ambition, and that's what's imprisoning the character in the current world or the status quo. So that's very, very helpful to do in every topic, but especially this one for stories. Why is this skipping? I gotta go back. For some reason, every time I get at my computer, something has updated and everything works differently every single time. There's an argument to be made that we are now living in beta perpetually and everything is a dress rehearsal. But somehow we've missed something here. Or maybe we haven't, but there should be 10. Oh, central image. We just went past that. So did we? I don't know. I get confused when things don't work properly. But I think we did do the central image there, and that was because of the brain cell thing. And so in this case, I don't know what the name of this novel is going to be, but I have the central image, and that central image is reflecting what the computer or what the novel or the story or screenplay or whatever it might become, short story, is all about. So that image now, it also just sort of suggests a title for the story. Anyway, different images should appear throughout. And images, of course, are icons which grab the eye, which help you see it better at a glance what's going on. And one of the things I might work towards is, especially when using memory palaces for plotting stories, is having just an icon for every part of the plot structure. So let's see if we can get this to actually go one slide at a time. Keywords should be capitalized. We did that. Great. Branches should flow and taper. We got that. Balance the length of the branches. We got that. Use a ton of colors. We got that. All right. I am discombobulated. Also, today is my heaviest day at the gym. I really got to keep that in mind before I come live streaming. Woo! Oh, man. I'm pushing the deadlifts to the nth degree and getting heavier and heavier. And then, wow. And I didn't have any coffee today. Amazing. All right. Rugamba is in the house. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hello. Davlavi says, how are things going? Things are going great. How are things going with you? And you're saying, hey, what's this? Well, it is a mind map. And we're talking about the laws of mind mapping. It is World Mind Mapping Day today, and celebrating that and Tony Buzan's wonderful contributions to mind mapping. All right, so use a ton of colors. Yay, we did that. And I think that one of the great things about using a ton of colors is that it does help you distinguish the different points, and it just makes it much more arresting and visual and gives you clarity. And emphasizing points with arrows and lines, we did that. There we go. Now we've got the one that I wanted. Maximize clarity with white space. So there's, if you saw the previous example I showed, I was not leaving any white space whatsoever. But now I really see the wisdom in having white space. And so this is very, very important. You don't want to overdo it. And what you can do is, let's say you're doing something like this and there's a number of points and you want to expand them, is now you could just have a new mind map for each point. So that's very a good strategy, is to do a governing mind map and then sub mind maps of each point, or the points that are needed there. So Davlavi says, just came back from a weekend of ninjutsu training, so I know how you feel. Amazing. Well, ninjutsu sounds exciting. Yeah, it can certainly hit you. Niori asks, what is the difference between mind mapping and a memory palace? Well, in some cases, the difference is a bit minimal, and in other cases, the difference is huge. Now, let's look at this and think about memorizing plot. So I have here, 11 points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. Now, if you know the major method, then this is instantly possible to transform into a memory palace by thinking of it as a clock. Point 1 is 01, point 2 is 02, point 03 is 3, and so on. And you have an image for each of that, and you could memorize your own story. So you can make every mind map a memory palace by simply making each branch numerical and then use a 00 to 99 to remember each of the points, which is something that Kronwoman Walking might want to think about for language learning. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But that's one thing. So and generally, memory palaces are for memorizing. Mind maps are for creating ideas, organizing ideas, fleshing out ideas, and also doing so in a way that can help your memory for sure. And you can also use them to review. And one of the most amazing things in this book is the review strategy that Phil Chambers shares. So I know Adolfo just said he grabbed a copy. You're going to love that review strategy because it's pretty amazing. And I will save that for readers of Phil Chambers' book because it's excellent. All right, if you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. We're talking about mind mapping. And would you like to see some of the different uses that I've had for making mind maps that have been so powerful for me and that you can adopt once you get very good at mind mapping? It's something that I do a lot, and really it's unbelievable to me how much it just gets better and better and better the more that you do it. So Rugamba says, hello, Yuraho. Oh, great. I wonder what Yuraho means. Albert is here from Mexico City. I have to say thank you. Thanks to your course, I could conquer Russian grammar so far. Amazing. That's wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for being here, Alberto, and thanks for your kind words. Well, thank you to you for taking action because you did the conquering. Wonderful. I love to hear that. And Russian grammar is, of course, notorious for being difficult. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Balkan Will is here from Kelowna. I know Kelowna. Wonderful place. And wow, going to have to make more memory palaces out of Kelowna. You may or may not know, but I spent lots of time in my life in Kamloops and in Salmon Arm, and those are probably the closest to Kelowna that I've hung around. Vernon, of course, also. Wonderful region, beautiful, beautiful territory, and great to have you here. Reclaiming Life says, no, I wouldn't like to see them. I'd love to see them. All right, we're going to rip them out. Rugamba says, Yuraho, hello from Rwanda. Well, hello to people in Rwanda. So is Yuraho is a word for hello? If so, let us know. Adam says, sir, I really want to know your answer to this question. How much time? Okay, first of all, this is not sir territory. I've never been knighted. I don't want to be knighted. Well, actually, I have been knighted. Tony Buzan gave me this, which is the Warrior of the Mind emblem for outstanding contributions to global mental literacy. So I guess I've been knighted. But I still don't like to be called sir. Please don't call me sir. If you must use an honorary title, it's doctor, but Anthony will do. All right. So, you would like to know how much time it takes to remember 50 pages of information using a memory palace. Great question. Here is the answer to that. It takes as much time as you tell me it did after you've done it. So, what you want to do is you want to learn how to use memory techniques. Learn how to use memory palaces. Maybe you want to mind map a little bit so that some of what you put in your memory palaces is more memorable to you. Like, for example, if you can't remember, or you can't come up with associative imagery, you could mind map the associative imagery that you could come up with. We'll have an example of that coming up soon. But at the end of the day, no one can tell you how long it's going to take. You have to tell us how long it took you. But in general, first of all, 50 pages of information, what are we talking about? You have to memorize verbatim every single word on that page? If so, what book and why? Do you really need to do that? Most people don't need to memorize nearly as much as they think. If you do legitimately have to memorize that much, then you're going to need to create the Memory Palace Network in order for you to be able to do that. And so that timing is up to you. No one else can tell you that. And it's like asking, how long will it take me to get a black belt? Well, how long are you willing to show up and do what it takes to get one? You know? And not everybody, I actually don't know that much about getting black belts, but I assume that there's no pat answer. There's no, well, son, it's going to take you 43 days and 23 hours and 62 minutes and 43 seconds. Like, I don't think that exists. But I appreciate your question. Let me know if you have more questions. Rugamba says, hello equals Yuraho. Try to memorize. We don't have to try. Just have to think about what it is that I'm going to do. So, you're a hoe. Already something lewd and lascivious comes to mind. But a friend of mine wrote a book called Urdoxa. His name is Canex Fauché. So I would see him with his book Urdoxa, and maybe he's beating up a map of Idaho, and he's saying, "Hello, Idaho, you're a hoe, you're a hoe." Right? There we go. So, but what is the language? What is the language that this belongs to? You're a hoe. By the way, Urdoxa. I highly recommend reading this book. It's a wild ride. All right. Albert says, I have a question. Could I create a portal in one of my memory palaces in order to get more space? Yes, absolutely. Please do. Experiment with that. Teleportation from one place to another is fine. However, Albert, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can just create new memory palaces and assign in the creation and use of them that they are now for additional things. So teleportation can be done, but it's not necessarily necessary. A lot has to do with how you're organizing the memory palaces in order to memorize. And the more you put into preparation and organization, the less you have to play games like that later. Not that there's anything wrong with games like that later. You can do it. And please do. So, Rugamba says Rwanda. So Rwanda is the name of the language? Reclaiming Life says, my experience with getting black belts consists of walking in a store and purchasing them. All right, there we go. You get the laughter bell. All right, good one. Ba-boom, ching. So, great. All right. So let's look at some examples of different things you could do. Skipping slides here. What's the problem with this thing? Let me go back, make sure it didn't skip more than one. Good. Generating more memory palaces is one of my favorite things to do. So we did this on a live stream, and you could just take a simple memory palace, follow these general principles and rules and guidelines. I have an image there in the center to represent memory palaces, and then I just start going through it. Homes, number one thing I always go to. What do my friends' homes look like? Family, etc. TV characters, etc., etc., etc. Schools. So many possibilities. Go through movies, go through all kinds of things. Churches, cars, etc. So if you ever get stuck and you're like, what am I going to use for a memory palace? Get out some colors, get out a big old piece of paper, put a central image that suggests to you the idea of the mind palace or the memory palace, and rock and roll out some ideas. Just create a branch. By the time that you've created that first branch, I like to color them in with little stripes. You don't have to do that, but I recommend it because it puts a delay and it helps you with delayed gratification. That's another thing actually about the mind map that I really like, is it helps you deal and develop the skill of delayed gratification. So everybody's just like, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now. And nothing in the world works that way, really. The need for instant gratification is the number one tool of the evil Dr. Forget, who freezes your soul and holds you in stasis so that you can't make any movement. But you've got to make movement. You've got to do something. And this is a great way to do it, right? What's the smallest thing that you could do when you're stuck for ideas? Piece of paper and some colors and just start to draw. So you know your intent, you know your objective. Now you just get started. So that's one of my favorite uses, is generating many more memory palace ideas. And I also like to use it for new books and courses. So this is a mind map for a massive course I'm working on right now. And you can see that it's massive. But here's the thing. I charted out this whole course in about 30 minutes. And it's just a great example of how starting with a central image with an objective, just boom, so many ideas. Unbelievable. And I really knew where I wanted to go, but I don't even have, I have to actually think of scaling this down. Should I really make a course this big? Well, there's just that many ideas. And some of these have gone on to be separate, smaller mind maps for individual things. But that's just the just the brain dumping that was unlocked. And I really just had only a general idea. And then it's like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do that, we can do this, and it's just boom. Now, you may not find that the first time you mind map, but because I've practiced it so much, now it's just like the oils are geared. That doesn't sound right. The gears are oiled. All right. So that's something. And you can see that I have some of the arrows pointing around, etc., etc. And it's very, very important. Oh, Adolfo says, what's the course? That's coming soon. You're going to love this. This is next level stuff. And really, really excited to put it together. Ideas, though, are nothing. It's the execution that matters. So I'm very excited by the ideas, and I'm very glad that I generated all the ideas. But this course is now helping people through a multiple variety of approaches and new things that I've come up with and started to put into practice. And it is going to be available as soon as it can be available. But I have to finish my next book first. And this will probably also be a book, but I'm going to start with the course version. And it may just stay a course version. In any case, it is just a great example of how you can go from 0 to 60 kilometers an hour just by sitting down with a piece of paper. So there's that. Also, language learning. So this it was before that I read Mind Map Mastery, and I was just not being colorful and so forth. But memorizing a word, I chose to just make the word the central image. Didn't capitalize it, which would be better, and so forth. But my goal here was, how can we memorize the tones, the word, the meaning, and everything, and the characters in one fell blow? And so that's what this was about. Now, in terms of, memorizing French and so forth for Chrono and Walking, one of the things you'd want to do is maybe think of that central image. And you may have seen images that I've had for some of my German and so forth. When I didn't feel like I could come up with an idea, then I just came and got the colors and so forth, and just make the word the image, and have the word help you with like something like "you're a hoe," right? Which is probably someone spamming us. And that person, I don't know, but if you're having a laugh, I memorized it correctly. So the laugh is on no one, and very fun. But there's a Spanish word, la horror. I don't even know if I pronounced that one correctly, but I think that's how it's pronounced in Chile. And who knows? Some of these words do sound very lascivious, don't they? All right. Rohit is in the house. Oh. So let me see here. I think that we do have someone has taken over someone's account that is normally a very nice individual. Wow. All right. So I'm going to have to see about this. Hold on. Let me make some things. We are getting spammed today. Interesting. Okay, so anyway, language learning is something you can do, and I recommend that you get the sound and the meaning in there. And again, it's that sort of thing where I was just like, what am I going to do for this word? And just by putting it there and starting to delay your need for gratification, then you're going to start to allow yourself to just have ideas, relax, and ideas come together. Now, in the case of the tones, or whatever you see 41, that's using a 00 to 99 to remember what the tones are, and so on and so forth. And some friends show up, and they're actually doing the thing that the word means, and so on. So that's a use. And let's get on to one of my next favorite uses, which is idea generation as such. So, I did a live stream before on retention, and I thought, what am I going to talk about memory retention? And so I just sat down and mind mapped all the points that I was going to cover, and then they appeared on the screen and we talked about them, and it was a pretty good live stream if memory serves, which is not very difficult because I think they're all pretty good, and you guys make it so. So if you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and let's get into our chat here a little bit. NM says, Anthony, I can't use memory palaces properly. I've been trying for the past 3 years, but I couldn't. Can you tell me some of the reasons why I couldn't use a memory palace? Well, NM, I'm sorry that you can't use memory palaces properly. I don't know what proper means other than you memorize some stuff and you get it back. You get it back accurately. So if you're not able to do that properly, then what is it that you're memorizing and what are you doing with the memory palace? I can't tell you the reasons unless I know what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. So please be more explicit. And if you want to make the use of the time now, then please do so. And we will talk about it. Reclaiming Life says, looks like the next several levels from that mind map. I'm excited about it. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's just one of these courses that I'm just thinking, wow, how exactly is going to be the best way to do it? And the best way to do it is just to get out there and do it. But I'm going to get more of the slides together and script it. And I'm deciding, like, do I want to just slide it or actually have a full script? I've done both, and we'll see. I mean, we just got to test. Anyway, as you may have noticed, been doing lots of tests, and the magnetic square test, I think, was a wild success. So, we'll run that again, and just figuring out what it is that will help people. And mind mapping has helped me figure it out more and more and more. So I like it for idea generation and continuing to just constantly come up with ideas. And again, like, one of the key points here for mind mapping is that the more you practice it, the more it just will flow. So it's worth every penny to just get the biggest notepad you can get, or art. I just use sketch pads for artists, and you can just go into any store and just get them and get some colors and just start to do it. And don't just let go of the outcome. Don't worry about, is it going to work or whatever. Just get some training and just start doing it. And you'll start to turn it into a habit and discover that it gets better and better and better the more that you do it. All right. So let's check in with the chat. Rugamba says, mind mapping looks like chain method associations. It certainly has the ability to do that. And so if you look back at the previous slide with language learning, I am chaining together a number of associations. So the whole idea here is that 41 is rat. I think of splinter. So splinter is getting in a taxi with my friends whose names are associated in a chain with the sounds of this word, right? And so they're in that taxi heading off to do the thing that the word indicates and means. So it is a chain in that sense. And I'm just using mind maps to display it, make it easier on my brain. Because, look, not every day is equal. Some days I get up and I'm just like, I got to do my memory work. And I just don't come up with the associations. I normally do. But I don't let not coming up with associations stop me from coming up with associations. I just get open a piece of paper and start to draw. It's very, very good. I see Maricella is here. She's great at drawing. Good to see you, Maricella. Wonderful, wonderful that you're here. And I love that little graphic you had there. All right. Jamel is in the house. Good morning, Jamel. Good to see you. Albert says, yeah, I saved my memory palace, only one example of each grammar rule, and it is awesome. After a while, it comes naturally. The grammar point structure comes naturally. Yeah, memorize examples of grammar and away you go. It'll just start to happen. The more you have it in memory and then from memory into use, then the more naturally you can just start to use the grammar rules. You'll hear them when you encounter them, and you'll use them much more naturally. All right, so hit that thumbs up if you're just joining us, and even if you haven't hit the thumbs up and I've been here for a while, hit it now. If you're new to this channel, get subscribed, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of future live streams, assuming YouTube is notifying people these days. Who knows? And let's carry on with perhaps one of my favorite uses of mind mapping, which is planning. And so this mind map I created training with Tony Buzan, and it was very cool to be able to do that, because I planned out the magnetic memory method for the next couple of years. And so far so good. I mean, it's all just sort of come into fruition. And one of the things about it is you make it visual to yourself. I'm not really a visual person, but I am visual in the sense that everybody's visual. You open your eyes and you see stuff, assuming that you are so blessed. And if you are, then you should really acknowledge those blessings. And you're able to just get it in front of your eyes, and then you think about it differently. And then, does that really belong in the plan? Is that really a priority or not? And so it's just been absolutely wonderful to look back at this and remember on World Mind Mapping Day just how much that this simple act, it fortified what I was already thinking and just helped make it come into fruition, and with so much bliss along the way. All right. So Niori says, the art of learning is helping me to overcome depression. Just sharing. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's helped me deal with depression as well. And man, did I ever get hit with the depression stick. Unbelievable. And it's not really anything that goes away, but it is something that I have tools for, incredible tools. And I really, really hope everybody reads your comment and helps others who have depression know that the art of learning is a great tool. Privyet, Sofia. What do you say? Koktala? Is that right? Privyet. I like that word. Privyet. Niori, it says it has helped as well with mental challenges. Indeed, yes. All this training helps with mental challenges. And one of the reasons why it helps with mental challenge is because you're actually taking on challenge, and you're looking it in the face, and you're then strengthening your abilities by being challenged. And you just grow. You grow tools. You develop what's called cognitive reserve for dealing with challenge. And so everything seems much easier after that. And you just learning also just gives you so much perspective, gives you so much context, and you understand so much more about how great it is, really, at the end of the day. That doesn't mean there aren't bad things happening in the world. Certainly there are, but the fact that any of us are here now with machines that connect us to be able to talk about learning, things are pretty damn good. They're really great. And when you know anything about previous periods in history, man, do those, like, when you think about how humanity even got here, it's like unbelievable the stuff they had to put up with and the lack of resources that they had, and yet there was still happiness to a certain degree. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, they were hardcore. They made it, and we're here because they made it. And the things that people whine and cry about these days, totally understandable, because humans have brains. But we can get over it. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Niori. Wonderful, wonderful. And for anybody struggling, just take motion. Start to do these things. You learn it by doing, and it will change everything for you. Maricela says, I do not remember you write the action when you try for recall information. I don't understand the question, Maricela. If you can reword it, that would be great. So Sophia is in Petersburg. Wow. So that must be an amazing place to be. I've never been there. Reclaiming Life says, it almost looks like a camping trip is being planned. Camping sounds fun. No camping trip being planned, but I see why you would come to that conclusion. But no camping. In any case, I love to plan, and I would suggest anybody just do this. Make the central image that is the theme of what it is you want to do, and start to make these little branches and connect them and be as visual as possible. So let's review these laws. And so we had blank paper in the landscape orientation. Draw a central image in the center. Different images should appear throughout. Keywords should be capitalized. Keywords should have their own branch. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily have to have keywords, but capitalizing them would certainly make sense. Bravo, Sean is working on his first map. Excellent. That's great to hear. And your branches should flow and taper. Balance the length of your branches and use a ton of colors. Emphasize points with arrows and lines, and use a blank space for clarity and have white space. And look, mind mapping is something you grow over time. You practice consistently, develop your own style, and share your mind maps. So it's now World Mind Mapping Day, and if you do the hashtag World Mind Mapping Day, then you should, I think that's what it is. I didn't memorize it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. You can share them on Twitter today, whatever it is that you do. I know it's a bit late, but the time zone thing is just what it is, and so it's worth it. I think the other hashtag is hashtag Team Buzan, and they would love to see that. And even if you're brand new, they would love that as well. And I highly recommend that you get Mind Map Mastery and 101 top tips for better mind maps. Now, let me know if you have any questions, any comments, anything that you would like to talk about, and anything that you would like to see mind mapped on a future live stream. We have to change the setup to actually make it work on a live stream, but that would be fun. We've done it before, and that would be great. Now, I don't know what was up with Christos and his questions, but if he's still around, basically those were very strange. And in terms of breathing exercises in general, one of the things that's very, very important is to just breathe without really worrying about the outcome, and start to use the different exercises, but see a doctor first to make sure that breathing exercises are okay for you. So unless there are any more questions around breathing, I think we covered that. Niori says, Anthony, do you have a book purely about self-mastery? I have an audiobook, and it's called Self-Improvement Supercharger. And the whole point of that program is, well, actually it's a video course also, is to really help people understand how I got out of depression. And it has done very well. So if you're interested, you can look that up or get in touch. And I roll it out every so often, and it's one of those things that's proof of concept, because I wound up being invited to shoot on an island with 3 cameras, and that's in the video course version. But I haven't produced an actual book about that yet, but stay tuned, as one will certainly arise when the time is right for it to have been arisen. So that's my celebration today about mind mapping, and I appreciate everyone joining today. Let's see if there are questions, and we see one coming in now. Carlos says, what about mind mapping a to-do list or agenda? How has that worked for you, Sensei? I've not done to-do lists, but you certainly can. And look, agendas, I think, are they're hit or miss. What I'd rather focus on are systems as opposed to fixed plans. So I did call this a plan, but more of what's represented here are the systems that I'm going to create. Now, the systems do require to-do lists, but in the case of to-do lists, I find that they're actually where some of those other things that are sometimes called mind maps are a little bit more useful, because those are about processes. Those are about things where you're going to, check things off one at a time, et cetera, et cetera. And for to-do lists and whatnot, I rather like the Mastery Journal, because this is structured not so much as to-do lists, but as missions. So I'm almost at the end of this one, but I think I can find a blank page for you. And what you get is a number of areas to put down missions for the day. And so that's what I like to do. So for today, one of the missions is to do the live stream. And here we are. And it's not so each mission has its own to-do list, but I don't see any need to mind map it. So when we're talking about here and planning and so forth, these are all about systems, creating systems that just work and flow, as opposed to goals. So I'm planning to have systems working And those systems are, of course, associated with goals, but it's actually the system that's almost more important, because you're never going to reach the goal if the system doesn't handle that heavy lifting for you. All right, Ali says, have a nice time, my teacher. Bye. Well, thanks for saying goodbye, Ali. Great to have you here. Adolfo says, any updates on your new book? Yeah, I've been out taking photographs and stuff, trying to figure out how to make the photographs work. Then I need to just not rewrite the book, but rewrite the parts so that however the photographs end up looking makes sense. And I'm thinking maybe September might be the launch. Maybe earlier. I don't know. It's a complicated book. It's a complicated book because it needs to be perennial. So we're gonna put in the extra elbow grease. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate your interest. Marichella says, when you encode information, you use a location, you put action. Do you write this action to remember later, or just keep it in your mind to recall or decode later? Great question, Marichella. In the beginning, one of the things that I highly recommend that you do is write down all your magnetic imagery. You don't have to do it forever and ever, amen, but it really, really makes sense to do so. And even in more advanced stages, or more intermediate stages, it still makes sense to do so. Why? Because you're not putting the load entirely on your brain. You're keeping a record of what it is that you're doing, and you're able to just grow because you're seeing patterns, trends, places where you're trying to take shortcuts, etc. And so, very, very important. One of the things that I'm thinking of is how to make sure that I could one day make a magnetic memory journal that will enable people to make sure they're hitting all the modes. Because if you're not hitting all the modes, then that's usually why it doesn't matter how elaborate your action is and how powerful it is, you may still forget if you're not hitting all of the magnetic modes. And so even if you write it down and you're not hitting all those modes, then anyway, you have the masterclass, so you could make your own journal, and when you're encoding information, you can just say, did I have this mode? Do I have that mode? Do I have them all? Tick, 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 tick. You probably get far better results, because sometimes your images may not need action. They may not have action, right? Sometimes the modes trump the action and are not that necessary. Rarely, but you don't have to be so dogmatic about action. Also, objects can be actions in and of themselves. So, for example, with playing cards, and you'll see this if you go into the updated videos in the playing card course, memorizing cards course in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, you'll see that some of the objects and the persons, the PAO that I use, they are not really strictly person, action, object. They are action. And that's kind of one of the things that you can push yourself to. And the new course that I'm outlining is going to help people start to unlock more of those ideas faster. It's very important and powerful to do that. So great question, but I would just keep writing. Don't give up the writing. Even to this day, I still will write down what some of the magnetic imagery is. Not all of it, but some of it, because it's very useful to do so. And if for some reason imagery isn't working, I have to check myself. Oh, didn't use all those modes there. And there can be other things going on. Like, I don't know, you've posted in our mastermind group a number of images that are either potential memory palaces you're going to create, or that you could use as memory palaces. And some of them are outdoors, and maybe they're noisy locations. So if you check the latest update in the Mastermind Memory Vault, you'll see some things there where I'm choosing to use very noisy locations for practice and exercise, but it's like a recipe for more work than perhaps it's there. But I'm just doing research and growing my skills by putting obstacles in my path. And you're very welcome. Great question. While I remember it, I owe Carolyn an image of my bookstore in Zamalek. So in case that I don't get it photographed, there it is. And I'll do my best to photograph it. It's coming to you soonish. As Adolfo reminds me, I've got work to do on the book today, to be sure. Let's see here. Reclaiming Life says, I've found that when I'm recalling images that I have, I normally don't have or need all of the modes, but I find if I have problems remembering any of them, I can add more modes to bring it to 100%. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much in line with my own experience, but I try to push myself to use all the modes anyway, because this is good practice. And I find that when I'm too sure, that's when something falls apart. So it can be sometimes a challenge, especially the final two can be a bit of a challenge, but it's worth the challenge. And you come up with creative solutions and ideas about how that can work. All right. So that's been mind mapping. I'll rattle on with what's coming next for a few minutes. If anybody has any last questions or contributions that they would like to make to the chat. And it's been a wonderful thing to have mind mapping in my life. I just highly recommend everybody take it up. Take it up seriously. Get the Buzan training. There's a lot of people who use the term mind map, and to be fair, I don't know what wonderful things that they may have added to it, but I'm pretty confident they haven't gone into it in the depth and with the certainty and whatnot that Buzan has. So I really, really highly recommend that you get it from the person who's done the most, and just wow, who wouldn't want this book on their shelf? Like, it's just a beautiful book, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So get Mind Map Mastery. Let's see here. Albert says it works to me, saving information with an action and location. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, for those who maybe are listening to this and wondering what the heck we're talking about, typically what you're going to do is bring together a number of elements in the same space. So you've got your location. This is the ultimate formula, really. You got your location. You've got your imagery. Your imagery is doing something to something else in such a way that it is encoded to help you recall what that information is that you want to memorize. So assuming that there's actually this word in Rwanda called Yoroho, then there's going to be my friend with his book Urdoxa hitting a map of Idaho, I think I said. And so there, it's really the case that this person is in space and he's banging something, which is the action, to another thing. And so the semantic information there, which is just the idea that this arrangement of sounds means hello, according to our visitor, who may be playing a joke, but it's still something we can memorize. If we're now translating it into episodic memory and spatial memory at the same time. So we're weaving those things together. And then to go through the modes, it's a bit of an additional step, a number of steps actually, but then with recall rehearsal, bang presto, that would be memorized. And we'll just have to fact check and see if that is actually a word, or if somebody somebody's having fun with us, which is all in good humor, to be sure. What an interesting word. I saw somebody on one of their live streams talking about how that they've had to start blocking so many people, but I'm actually so curious that I'm going to have radio silence here and check what Google says. Not that I disbelieve you, but it's just a weird day. Had some weird comments coming up today. All right. Interesting. Thank you for that. And thank you for being with us in Rwanda. So summing up, we've got a number of rules for mind mapping, and that again is blank paper in the landscape, orientation, drawing a central image in the center, different images appearing throughout, keywords being capitalized, keywords having their own branch, and you can have keywords that follow out of keywords if you like, and the branches flowing and tapering, balancing the length of the branches. I found that one of those things where I was like, do I really need to be doing that? And then I started to do it, and I was like, that really does help. Using a ton of colors, obviously, I think that's one of the greatest things because it makes it much more visual. And again, a huge part of this is to actually have it be super visual for yourself. And then emphasize the points with arrows and lines. You can make connections and so forth. And the blank space being something that just gives relief to everything, makes it more visual. So ultimately, you can look at your mind maps and at a glance know what it was that you were mind mapping about. And so if you saw the examples that I had at the beginning, I showed you an early mind map that I did. There's no way. I knew what it was globally because I was working on a particular project. But when really trying to work with that mind map, it just didn't flow. And that's one of the things about mind mapping, is to get yourself in flow. And since then, not only have I been doing way better with mind maps, but I'm much more in flow with the mind map itself and the project that comes out of it. All right, so we will all remember that it is there. And Kinyarwanda, that's what I was sort of asking. And that's what was making me wonder if it's a joke or not, because I've not known Rwanda to be a language, which it could well be, but that just sounded strange to me that Rwanda would be the name of a language. Kinyarwanda, what a beautiful word, Kinyarwanda. So we might as well throw that in the memory hatch also. Let's see. So there's I think it's Patrick Swayze who's in a movie called Next of Kin. So we can think of him, and the German word for chin is Kinn. So he can be scratching his chin while mowing the lawn in the yard. And Wanda, who do we know whose name is Wanda? Isn't there a witch named Wanda? Let me see here. Have to come up with a one. Well, there's magic wands. So we'll think of Fantasia, Mickey Mouse. He has a magic wand in that, doesn't he? As we're looking to find an actual Wanda. And for some reason, Wendy's keep coming up. Now, let's pause upon that, because that's called the ugly sister effect. You're looking for one thing, as you keep finding other things. There's a Wendy that I met over there. I think it was, Wendy was a character in a TV show that we all probably watched. That's the name of which is not coming to me. Wanda Sykes says Adolfo is a comedian. I don't know that name, but can check it out. But anyway, Kinyarwanda. Yard was my first image. Not very good, actually. I can still see Patrick Swayze rubbing his chin while mowing my yard, see it, so to speak. But now that I think about it, isn't Lieutenant Yar in Star Trek, The Next Generation? That's much better a Yar, I think. So Kinyarwanda. And I'll have to look up Wanda Sykes. What a great name, Wanda Sykes. But what a great word, Kinyarwanda. One of the things I would suggest for everybody is to just fall in love with language. Fall in love with every word. There's no word that is banal or uninteresting. Words are just interesting, period. They're so wonderful. And so there we go. Adolfo confirms. Wonderful, wonderful. So one of the things, A Witch Called Wanda was a book and a video short. That's what I'm thinking of, yeah. I'm pretty sure that must be the same thing that I'm thinking of. But one of the things that we could do, and I'm not set up for it, nobody seemed to have any ideas of what they would like to see mind mapped, but we could also mind map the word Kinyarwanda. And one of the things that I would start to do is just break it down into syllables. And if I didn't have ideas, as I just had now, for what the magnetic imagery could be, you could start to mind map what those ideas would be. You could even make a mind map of just the first syllable. If you're really, really struggling with this kin, what are you going to do there? You could just start with that. Draw a little thing, see what comes to mind. I'm sure with practice, you can go to the mind map for even the smallest little thing that you have to memorize. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, if you don't already have something big and white to draw on, is to go today and get something big and white to draw on so that you can start to practice mind mapping consistently, develop your own style, and ultimately share your mind maps with others, as I have done today and as is happening on the Twitter. If you search out those feeds, and I hope that you do. All right, mind map. Adolfo says, mind map a math equation or rule. Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's get one in the chat if you want in the time that is remaining. We didn't do live calls today because we didn't. But I didn't see a whole number of people in the live stream replay mentioning that they liked that. But if you're here now and you care to type into the chat, would you like to see a phone number on the screen next time and do some calls? Let me know. And let me know if there are any more questions as I wait to see if Adolfo posts a math equation or if any other questions come. Proclaiming Life says, since you refer to yourself as a non-astrologer, you could mind map the astrological signs and houses. Yeah, exactly what I don't need to have in my mind. Although it would certainly be useful for the Bruno material. Maricella says, yes, some calls. All right. Rugamba says, no. Okay. Well, I hope you, Rugamba, were not offended in any way, but I did not know this word, and there was just some other strange comments, and I'm just so unaccustomed to strange things. However, as the project grows, there's been more strange things, and believe me, my skin is pretty thick. And I don't think it's getting any thinner, judging by the D- quality of the strange things that come in. A lot of people, they don't really quite realize that if you're going to write that way, that you got to put some energy in it if you want to phase people who have a thick skin. So there's actually a university of hate mail that you can get a degree at, and they'll train you to do it properly. But if you really don't study the technique, you're probably at a D- level. There was one that really shocked me the other day, because this person actually owns a software company, and they came at me with a base insult, thinking that I would actually allow that comment to be on the YouTube channel. And hopefully they weren't thinking that someone was going to then click on that and become a fan of their memory software. Because why would they? I mean, and even if they did, so what? But if that person, instead of a base insult, would have just said, what you're saying in this video, I have a question about it, or I don't think it's correct. Why don't we get on a call and record it? And he could have had potentially thousands of people visit the website. But no, this person who claims to, be a super smart individual who made this software that's supposed to help people with memory goes to the level of insult, showing just how potentially ridiculous an investment it would be in that person's software, because they engage on the internet with insults. Why would anybody be interested in buying that software when they saw something like that? regardless of my opinion about what their software would be good or not, it's just software. But what a strange thing. So we're certainly going to get more of that stuff as things grow. But weird that it comes from someone who's running a business online, or a representative who has hold of the account, which could also be the case. But missed out on an opportunity there, because if there's just I don't agree with everybody, and I've talked to people who develop apps, and I've had them on the podcast, and we just have intelligent discussions about it. We don't have to agree, and we get somewhere. We help people together. But if you're going to come with that sort of thing, like, how are we ever going to be able to feature your software, even if your software was the best on the planet? That's not how you draw attention to it. Anyway, if that fellow happens to want to change, or fellow S happens to want to change their tune, maybe I will listen. But unbelievable. Shocking. All right. Anyway, that's part of the background there, Rugamba, why I was a little bit suspicious. And in any case, beautiful word. Beautiful word. All right. So Rugamba says, telephone, no, we participate more here. Maybe. The chat may be better, but we'll see how I feel next time around to try it. David says, mind map the magnetic memory modes. Right. Yeah, well, that could be something, certainly, for one of our Memory Dojo sessions. That would be great. And thank you for letting me know you liked the calls. Mind map the modes. So one of the things that's interesting about mind maps is, I'm not sure I would mind map something that already exists, now that I think about it. I mean, we could do it, but it would be more something that you would want to do in order to understand them better. So, for example, if you go through the magnetic modes, you could mind map each and think of the multiple things that are associated with each. And so you'd start with one, mind map it out to the nth degree, start with the next one, mind map it out, mind map through all of them. And then I think you would find that you get a lot better results that way, by you doing the mind mapping, because I've already, identified them and arranged them in the way that I think is quite pleasant and fun and memorable. And so to mind map something that already exists, I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but good suggestion. I would love to see your mind maps of the magnetic modes. That I think would be especially interesting and fun. So Rugamba says the calls block the flow. Oh, yes and no. But we'll see. I appreciate your suggestion and feedback on that. Maricella says, yes, use the modes, and the modes have it. Yeah, well, actually what we could do is mind map a piece of information that we need to memorize and use the modes as we go through the memorization. That's how we can do it. So that's a good suggestion. All right. So that's all I got about mind mapping, other than to repeat what I already said. Get some tools so you can mind map. Develop your own style. Do it consistently so that you actually do have a style, so that you practice the different laws that we talked about today, and that you'll discover when you, as savvy, mature learners, go out and get Mind Map Mastery and 101 Top Tips for Better Mind Maps, and really understand why those suggestions are even there. And the people who are making those suggestions are suggesting them for a reason. That's because they practiced it consistently, and this is working out much, much better as a result. And dive in. Jamal says, could you touch on how mind map a literary work, a short story in particular, for the purpose of gaining insight and writing analytical essay about it as a student of literature? Okay, good. Let's talk about that for a bit. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking, and if you have any comments or questions. So this is a story that I haven't written yet, but let's get it all lined up here a little bit better. We can use this to what I would do if I needed to gain insight and write an analytical essay. about a story. I did this a lot in university, actually. So the plot points, Jamel, are that the hero has a ghost. That's why there's a ghost drawing there. And this is in many, many stories. Something is haunting the character from the past. If you know that it's a common characteristic of stories that a character is haunted by something from the past, not just as, oh, well, the character had a problem in the past, but as an actual structural narrative strategy, then you're going to notice it a lot more. So you could just make a mind map for yourself that says, ghost, what is it? If it's not in the story, then, it's probably not a very well-developed story, but it may not be. It may be that some stories don't have ghosts. I mean, if you're dealing with short stories, there's the difference between static characters and round characters as they teach in high school. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But high school, they don't want to overwhelm you, I guess. But ghost. So if you know that, then you could have that as being the first thing on your mind map of the story. What is the ghost? Now, the next thing is the driving ambition. That's where you see the muscle arm there. I'm not a great artist, but that's what that weird line is supposed to be, where I guess it kind of looks maybe like a duck swimming in water, but it's actually an arm with muscle. So you can mind map that out and say, okay, what's the character's driving ambition? If you can talk in your essays, this is the character's driving ambition. The person marking your essay is going to be like, wow, this person knows narratology. This person knows about plot. The next thing is the need. So characters tend to have a conflict between their driving ambition and what they actually need, right? And so you can split those out. You can make individual mind maps for all of these things, and maybe you draw a sock for the need. The next thing you want to identify is the dilemma. So a dilemma is, I guess at high school level, or I don't know if you're in university, they may teach it this way or not, but a dilemma classically and most effectively in literature is not just a problem, but it's a problem that creates multiple paths or avenues of action, none of which the character wants to pursue. Right? You may have heard in storytelling before that you have to force the character to face the thing that the character is afraid of the most. And one of the best ways that you do that is by having the character face many, many potential things and all of them be terrible. All of them. The more terrible all of them are, the better the story. But if you just generally know that dilemma is a problem the character doesn't want to face, usually there's like some humming and hawing and a period of delay and, oh, what am I going to do, etc., etc. Then the next thing that happens is the decision, and the decision to do something is followed by the action. And typically that's the sequence of the story, is what the character decides to do in order to solve the problem. And the rightness and the wrongness and the appropriateness all has to do with how that they have this conflict between their driving ambition and their unconscious need. And usually their driving ambition is going to lead them to make all kinds of mistakes along the way because they haven't realized what it is that they really want or need. Usually what they really want or need is the thing that resolves the ghost from the past, right? And so if they would just figure out that they need to resolve the ghost from the past, then probably the bad guy wouldn't have such a good hold on them. And in a good story, the bad guy is smarter, very, very smart, if not even a bit smarter than the hero, because that bad guy often knows what it is that's holding the hero back, right? It knows the unconscious need, and that's how it's able to manipulate the hero and set ducks up in a particular order and place. Now, G of A there is gathering of allies. That's not in every story, but it is a structural element that you should be aware of, and you'll know it when you see it, if that you know that gathering of allies is a kind of storytelling structure, right? Then sometimes the gathering of allies also involves a training sequence or some sort of acquiring of a skill that can happen with or without the allies, but typically it's from some ally, because how else is the dude or the dudess going to get trained, right? Now, the underworld is not in every story, but it's usually somehow in stories. And this is the period where the character is proceeding towards the battle, the final big shebang, and has this moment of doubt, or something happens where they see an alternative outcome. So they know the logic of what needs to play out. They have the action, they have the training, they have the allies to execute the plan when they beat the bad guy or whatever's going to happen there. But they have this moment where they see the possibility for failure or whatever. And this delays them a little bit. And they're just like, and this can appear in different parts of the story, by the way. So in The Matrix, the visit to the underworld appears very early. It's unusually early in a movie, but it's there. Anyway, if you know about that characteristic of stories, then you can start to identify it. And then the battle, there's all kinds of things that we can talk about in the battle, but ultimately the battle is typically won not by defeating the bad guy directly, but through SR there, which is self-revelation. So the hero realizes something. They're almost beaten usually to the point of breaking. Then they have a realization. That realization in and of itself enables them to defeat the hero like it was nothing. Why? Because that self-revelation usually dissolves their ghost, right? It dissolves their past. They realize that their driving ambition was preventing them from actually dealing with whatever it was in their past or whatever it is about them that they need to deal with. And then they just beat the bad guy like it's nothing. Then you have the resolution. Now, obviously there's a lot more finer details here because we can get into tragedy, and there's like at least 2 different kinds of tragedy. Comedy has at least 1 or 2 very distinguishing modes and character sets, and so on and so on. But I hope that helps you out, Jamel, because when you know all this stuff, then you read very differently, and then you can write very differently. And this is what's called narratology. But narratology is useful no matter what you're saying, because if you understand how plots play out and how that theme relates to plot, then you realize that, well, the theme is the plot in some sense, and the way that theme plays out is deeply structurally related to each and every part of the deep structural narrative of a story. So that's that, and that's why I mind map out my stories that I write based on the structure. Now, do I follow this exactly to the nth degree? No, I do allow the story to emerge as it's going to emerge, but the stories are much, much improved by actually having this in my mind, and then I can let it go and just allow whatever's going to emerge. So hope that helps you out. Albert says, I'm making a memory palace for Korean vocabulary. Kat da be like. I saved Kylie Jenner with a cat costume dating a cat at a Korean restaurant, for instance. I saved this word inside a portal book. Amazing. Very, very cool. Love that. Cat costume dating a cat. So, yeah, I would think of some very, very specific cat or person dressed as a cat is a good one. Very good. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Marichella says, I need at the time I am studying to improve my writing, reading, listening, and speaking to pass the TOEFL. Practice is better for fluency. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Practice makes progress. All right. So, again, I think that this is great for narratology, for structuring stories, but also structuring anything. It generates ideas as you go through it, and you can follow all of those rules. So thank you everybody for another great live stream session today. Really appreciate hanging out with you, and great questions. And well, what can I say? Until we have a chance to speak again, follow up if you like with the links in the description below. Get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.
384626 4338 3279 5028 84 1971 69 399375.
Hi, my name is Paul, and I've taken a few courses by Anthony Metivier, but I felt that the experience of doing it today live was the biggest advantage. Anthony has a gift in simplifying complex concepts, and I feel that I've really come away today with practical skills that I can now use effectively. It was great to immerse ourselves in the situation, to be able to apply the time, because when we're at home we may not take the time to do the memory exercises that we were doing today. I felt particularly that the thing that we did at the end of today was something that is totally unique in memory training, which is 3 days of memory, which is how to practice your skills. I've read many memory books and I've never come across a system laid out as to how to practice what you've learned, and this is what I gained today from Anthony's course. So I'd give it 10 out of 10. Thank you.
5342117067.